Hi everyone. We are going to get started here in just a second. I am Carissa and I am so excited to be here with you and Crafty Croc for our very first Facebook Live lettering session tonight. Okay, let me just get everything set up here. And if you are here and you can hear me, please go ahead and say hello in the comments. I'd love to know who we have here today. Okay, please just be patient with me here for a second. I'm getting everything set up. It seems like we've got a number of different people on with us so far, so welcome. Thank you for joining us. All right, and I'm just checking my camera angle. Hi, Jess. How are you today? Thanks for stopping in. All right. Thanks, everybody, for bearing with me. All right. There we go. I think that looks a little bit better. Oh, my golly. There we go. Not too bad. All right. Wonderful. Okay, so it looks like I got a number of you on here with me today, so thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. My name is Carissa, and I am the owner of Positively Lettering. I have partnered with Crafty Croc to offer this absolutely free Facebook Live Lettering Basics Stay Home session. So thank you so much for choosing to take an hour out of your day today to learn some lettering. I hope that you'll find this session to be enjoyable and peaceful and just a nice little bright spot in an otherwise uncertain time right now. I am so excited to be partnering with Crafty Croc to bring you these sessions. If you do not have this packet available, these are the worksheets that we will be going through today, and they are available on Crafty Croc's website now through the end of this live session at an amazing discount. All you have to do is use the code POSITIVE and you will get $10 off, and the sheets are $15. So you're only paying $5, and it's a 26-page lettering worksheet here. So it's an amazing deal. So I'd say go ahead, and if you want to follow along and work with us, you could go purchase that right now. If you kind of just want to watch, that's absolutely fine as well. But after this session is over, the price on those worksheets will go up just a little bit. Now, also, one thing that would be helpful for you to have, although again, not necessary, is a brush pen. We are going to be learning brush lettering today. For today's class, I will be using a Bria Reese dual tip pen, but there are plenty of other pens you can use, including Artist Loft, Tombow, Sharpie, Caron, Fineliner, and of course, the Crafty Croc brush pens as well. Now, there are some differences in the Crafty Croc versus some of these other brush pens, and we will go over those in just a little bit. And if you've never seen these water brush pens from Crafty Croc, they are gorgeous. They come in this absolutely beautiful travel case, and you get all these colors here, as well as 2 blending brushes and they blend beautifully. They are some of the best blending markers I have ever used, and those are available on their website as well. All right, I want to say hi to Boo. Thanks so much for joining us today. And Janelle as well. I do believe that this video will be available for playback. If I'm wrong, please just let me know, but I do think that there will be a replay. And yes, there will be, Janelle. So thanks so much for the question. That's a good question. Now, sessions are new, and we're really excited about offering them to you. I don't know if you noticed, but earlier this week, Crafty Croc offered a number of other sessions as well. On Thursday, Catherine did a doodling and coloring session, and then yesterday, Kiki, one of the new artists at Crafty Croc, she did a pizza box coloring designing session. So if you want to be notified about more of these workshops that we're doing, you can sign up on Crafty Croc's website, and you'll get whole bunches of notifications as well as promos and all of that, so that you can be aware of the different classes that are coming up. And Crafty Croc is constantly working to improve them, add new ones. So if there's anything you'd like to see, just reach out and let us know, and we will look into making those possible. But for now, tonight, we're going to go over some lettering basics. And we would love to hear your feedback as well. So please go ahead and feel free to give us some feedback in the comments. If you have any questions, I will do my best to answer those as we go along in tonight's session. And as we kind of just get started, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I am a stay-at-home mom to a 6- and 4-year-old. We live in North Carolina. I am a native northerner though, and I am very much enjoying the sunny North Carolina weather that we have, and not the inch of snow that our family back home just got this week. So we highly enjoy North Carolina. I've been lettering for about 3 years now, and I am self-taught. And lettering started as an interest for me, kind of on a whim. I was just curious. It turned into a hobby, which definitely served as sort of an art therapy for me. And then by the grace of God, it's turned into this little itty bitty small business, which has been so wonderful. And I feel incredibly blessed. And my goal and my desire is to spread positivity, encouragement, and inspiration through my hand lettering, my designs, products, and these classes. So thank you all for joining me so much tonight. And we will go ahead and take a look at these worksheets that we're going to go over, and we're going to get started. I've had people ask me in the past whether you can letter with something like a pencil or something like a Crayola marker. And yes, please do. If you have that handy, if you have a piece of paper handy, go right ahead and play along with us tonight. But for now, we are going to go over these with a brush pen. Now, what we are using, as I mentioned before, is a large or medium-sized brush pen. And there are other options, as we talked about, and they are listed here. For paper, I prefer the HP LaserJet Premium 24. And this will help the pen glide better on your paper, and it's also going to help extend the life of your pen. So I would just like to show you the difference here. Here's like your regular copy paper. It's pretty thin, pretty see-through, and it doesn't hold up as well. The LaserJet Premium is much thicker. You'll notice it's not quite as transparent, and you can't feel it right now, obviously, but it's more glossy, and so your pens will definitely glide better on this paper, which will help extend the life of your pens. But if all you have right now is copy paper, that will work just as well. All right, so some things to know about hand lettering is hand lettering is not handwriting. I know a lot of people will say, oh, you have such nice handwriting, and that's not completely true. Much like anything, hand lettering is something that takes practice and takes a lot of time, and you'll see here the difference between some hand lettered words and some handwriting. So it is a skill that is learned and practiced with a definite skill set, strokes, and that sort of thing. The lettering fundamentals that you learned in school are different than the the lettering fundamentals we'll learn tonight are different than the cursive you might have learned in school. So if I have any teachers out there, I'm sorry, I apologize, but throw out the cursive because we are going to be learning a little bit differently, and our fundamentals are very different. Janelle would like to know if you could use watercolor paper. Yes, you can definitely use watercolor paper. That would obviously be the thickest of the paper. One thing I would say is if you're just learning to letter, personally, I would not go through watercolor paper just because it's expensive. But if you want to make a nice piece and put it on a piece of watercolor paper and then use your brush pens to blend it and all of that, definitely do that. But if you're going through drills and that sort of thing, I'd say stick to some less expensive paper. And another option you can use as well is tracing paper. And that's actually a very good option because you can go right over these, trace your strokes, and then you're saving these every time. Now, another thing I want to mention is that hand lettering is slow. The videos that you see online, they are lying to you. Most of those are sped up about 20, 30 times perhaps. Most of the time because we need to fit them into the constraints of an Instagram video. However, hand lettering is a very slow, meticulous practice. So if you feel like you're going too slow, you're probably not. And if you're struggling, I would say slow down and try it from there. You probably will not master it overnight, and that's okay. Much like any skill, it takes time, it takes practice, and then some more practice. I have been hand lettering or brush lettering probably every day for the last 3 years. Lots of drills, lots of practice, lots of different types of challenges and sort of things. And so I was really able to work on my skills because I did a lot of practicing. And one thing I would like to encourage you with, hand lettering is not a font. It's not a stencil. There will be imperfections, there will be nuances, and that's what makes it unique, one of a kind, and all you. So if you look at it and think, oh, it doesn't look like so-and-so's, that's okay, because it's not so-and-so's, it's yours, and that's what makes it so special. All right, so if you learn nothing else today, right, if you take nothing else with you, the one thing I want you to learn and I want you to know is that hand lettering is all about pressure. That's it. That's all you need to know. If you're trying to get a thick, heavy downstroke, you're going to use heavy pressure. If you want a thin, light upstroke, then you want light pressure. And right there, that is the basic fundamental of lettering. And one of the best things I ever learned is that hand lettering is the art of drawing letters. Did you get that? It is the art of drawing letters. So not only will you be lettering, but you will be an artist because you will be drawing your letters, which is, it's a really fun way to look at it, and you'll see once we get there really how that all works out. What we're doing is we're putting the basic strokes together to form our letters. And much like in cursive, when you put the all the letters together to form words, we're putting strokes together to form letters. All right, moving on to the next page here, we are going to take a look at those strokes that we just talked about. And Janelle mentioned that my mic went out. Can anybody hear me? Am I completely, I guess if you can't hear me, you can't hear me say this. If you can hear me, can you just comment in the comments for me? That would be super helpful. All right, I'm gonna keep talking and hope that you can hear me okay. Okay, it's better. They can hear me. Wonderful. Thank you, Janelle. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Shayla and Stacy. All right, so we're going to go over the strokes now. Now, these are the 7 basic strokes that are going to make up our hand lettering. And I do want to mention that because we're going to be pulling really heavy down strokes like so, that is why we're going to be using a brush pen like this. If you can see, it is a felt tip, and it is all one piece. Okay? So that's going to allow us to really pull a very strong, thick downstroke. Now, with these Crafty Croc markers here, I would just like to show you a little bit of the difference that you will run into. Because these are built more like actual brushes, like what you would paint with, they have bristles. So they are not all one piece here. And they are beautiful pens. And like I said, they blend beautifully. However, it's a little bit harder to just pull a straight, a very thick line because the bristles will spread out. So as a beginner, I highly recommend one of these here. But then as you start to be more familiar with your brushes and your pens, I would say you can definitely switch over here to the bristles. So the strokes that we have are our downstroke, our oval, our upstroke, and our underturn. We've got an overturn, ascending loop, and a descending loop. And you'll see here, you can already recognize some of the letters that these are going to go with. A lot of the questions that I get are, how do I hold my pen? All right, so I don't have a great answer for you, unfortunately, but in my experience, it's really whatever works best for you. There's really no right or wrong way. I would say try a bunch of different ways. So try your drills holding your pen one way, and then if that's not comfortable for you, switch it up or switch it up. So really go through maybe one page one way and another page another way, but find what works best for you, and it will help you find your style. Do I have any questions before we get right into our drills? I would love to answer anything for you. All right, I will monitor the comments, and we're going to go ahead and get started with some drills. So the very first one that we're going to do here is our downstroke. Now it is thick, and we want it to be thick. I've given you a like a tool here with our starting circle and the arrow for our the direction of our stroke. So we're going to start here at the top and work our way down. Start at the top, work our way down, top, and work our way down. All right, and let's keep going. Notice how noisy this is. It's because I'm applying a lot of pressure on my pen right now. And that's okay. I want to do that. These pens are designed for that. And if you were using something like a pencil, a pen, you just want to make sure that you're giving it a lot of pressure. Now we move over to our upstroke, and it's going to be thin. Okay, so we start at our teal dot and we move our way up. We're going to take our time nice and slow. The upstroke is definitely more difficult than the downstroke. Even now, you'll see my upstrokes are not perfect. They're not perfectly straight. The good news is we're not going to be doing this a lot. There's very few words that would have one straight upstroke like this. These are just exercises to help warm up our hands and help build our muscle memory. A lot of times I'll get a question on how thick my downstroke should be, how thin my upstroke should be. Once again, it's personal preference. As long as you can see the difference between your downstroke and your upstroke, you're great. Some people have extremely thick downstrokes and very, very thin upstrokes and vice versa. Whatever as you're finding your style works for you. All right, so now let's move on to this drill here where we're going to do each. And you'll see our pink stroke is first, followed by our purple stroke. So that's where we're gonna lift our pen. So we're thick to go down, thin to go up, thick to go down, thin to go up. And again, we are just warming up our hand to really build that muscle memory. And as we mentioned, if you want to try changing your pen, try changing it. It might work a little bit better for you to hold it like so. It does not work quite so well for me. You'll see my upstroke got to be quite thick. So for me, it's a little bit less strong and more on the tip here. All right, now we're going to move on to these sort of mountains, and you'll notice we've got two different colored arrows, which means we're going to lift our pen here. And that is something you will see that's much different than your cursive from school. We're going to lift our pen off the paper a lot. So don't get so caught up in the cursive, my pen needs to stay on the paper, because that's not the same here. So we're going to start at our teal dot, work our way up thin, down thick. Go ahead and lift your pen, up thin, down thick, up and down. We'll go ahead and try it on our own now without our lines. There we go. And again, we don't typically see very harsh strokes like this. They're a lot more flowy. So if you're struggling with this, we won't be doing a whole lot of it. You'll see it more in your V more than anything, but even then it's not nearly as harsh. All right, moving on to the oval. I will warn you, I've gotten a lot of feedback that a lot of students don't particularly care for the oval. It is one of the harder strokes just because it requires a lot of precision. But what we're going to do here is we're going to start, if you imagine it like a steering wheel or a clock, we're going to start at that 2 o'clock for all of you that drive out there. We may have some younger than driving age, but you want 2 o'clock here. And we're going to start by going thin up, thick down, and then thin back up, okay? That's where it can get a little bit tricky, is because we're doing a thin, thick, and then thin again transition. So starting at 2, we go thin to thick to thin. Go nice and slow, take your time. There's no rush at all. Thin, thick, and thin. One thing you will notice if you've studied a lot of letterers or just seen other letterers, you'll notice my style tends to be very narrow. Other letterers might be a little more wide or a little larger. I tend to just skew very narrow in my lettering style. So, find what works for you. Maybe as you become more comfortable and do more lettering, you find that your ovals tend to be fatter, or maybe you end up being more narrow and thin like mine are. But just try it out and see what works for you. Okay, so we've got 3 of our strokes there. Now we're going to move on over to another practice, which is this wave. Okay, we will be seeing this a little bit more as we start to do our alphabet. We're going to start at our teal starting dot, and we're going to attempt to keep our hand on the page this entire time. So we're moving up and we're thin, down and we're thick, up, down, up, down. Okay? All right, we have a couple more people joining. Hi, Abby. Thanks so much for joining us today. And Susan, sure thing. So glad that we could offer this free session. We enjoy doing it. And we're glad that you chose to spend some time with us today. All right, so this really, again, is just another drill. It is helping us practice those transitions because, as you see, we're going to start getting into those here. So let's try one more time. We're going up, so we're thin, down, so we're thick, up, and down. Okay? All right, now we're going to move on to our overturn. And what we're basically doing here is we are turning over, so we're going thin to thick to thin. Again, our arrows are the same color, so the strokes are the same. We're not going to lift our pen. All right, so we're going to go thin to thick to thin. All right, let's try that again. Thin, thick, thin. And you'll notice you probably heard my pen again on the paper because I'm really giving it a lot of pressure. And you'll see as we begin writing letters, you know, you've basically got the letter U right here, and down here you've basically got the letter N. So these strokes we will be using a lot. All right, we've got a couple more people joining us. Hi, Cheryl. Thanks so much for joining. Laura, I'm glad you're having fun. That makes me so happy. And Veronica, Crafty Croc has some great markers that you can totally join in with. If you don't have those, feel free to pick up a Crayola marker or a pencil. Basically, since we're all about pressure, it doesn't really matter what you're using, although these brush pens make it nice and easy for you. You just want to basically make sure you've got thin lines and thick lines. All right, so let's go to our underturn now, and where we were going over in our transition, now we're coming down here and going under. Okay, so let's go down thick, up thin, and down thick. Down thick, up thin, and down thick. Okay, let's try one more time. Down, up, and down. And there you have an underturn. Okay? So now we're going to move over to our ascending loop. And your ascending loop, you're going to see in letters like B, D, K, H, a lot of those letters there. So again, we're moving into these strokes that will be quite frequent in our letters. We're going to start at our teal starting dot. We're moving up, so we're thin, and as we come down, we're thick. All right, thin moving up, thick to go down, thin to go up, thick to go down. And Cheryl, of course you could do this. If I had some of my old stuff, I could totally show you where I started. And as you can see, you know, a little bit of where I am now. We were all beginners in something once. And with a lot of practice, you definitely could do this. All right, we're gonna go up without our tracing line here and thick down, thin to thick, and one more time, thin to thick. So there you go. There's our ascending loop. And now we're gonna move over to our descending loop. You're gonna see this in some of your letters like J, because it's pretty much the letter J, but also in P, Y, and letters like those. Okay, so we're going to start at our teal starting dot, move down, so we're thick, and up, we're thin. Down thick, up thin, down thick, and up thin. All right, let's go ahead and give it a try right now without our tracing lines. And one more time. And there's our descending loop. Okay? So now we're going to move on. We've gone over all of our strokes. So congratulations. You have now learned all 7 of the basic strokes. We're going to learn how to put it all together. Okay? Now, I did give you some upstrokes here. Hi, Alex. Thanks so much for joining us. I did put together some more upstrokes and downstrokes that are more like what we're going to be writing. Okay? So our upstroke, where it's not going to be so up and down, it's going to be more of a thin up at more of a diagonal. This is how we're going to begin some of our letters like this, and you might be able to tell as you're writing, it's a little bit more natural, okay? At least I hope you feel that way. Now our downstroke, we're gonna add these tails here because that's how we're gonna connect our letters. So we've got a thick downstroke and a thin tail. Thick and thin, thick and thin. And these downstrokes here are a lot more true to how we'll be writing letters. Okay? Now, this is where we get to put it all together for you. If you remember at the beginning, I mentioned how hand lettering is the art of drawing letters. Well, now we get to draw, all right? We're gonna go in with our upstroke that we just learned, come in with our oval, and finish strong with our downstroke. And there it is, 3 separate strokes, upstroke, oval, downstroke. We put it together, upstroke, plus an oval, plus a downstroke, gives us the letter A. See how that worked? Pretty nifty, huh? At least I think so. There you have it, the letter A. Okay, go ahead and give it a try. Hopefully you kind of get to see how it all comes together. So let's go ahead and do it together with our upstroke, our oval, and our downstroke. Now, because others had mentioned like a pencil or something like that, I'm going to go ahead and show you what we could do. Just lightly apply your pressure. I don't even know if you can see that, it's so light. And then you want your thick pressure for your downstroke, your oval, and then your thick pressure for your downstroke. So as long as you're really applying the thick and the thin principles, you can still use something like a pencil as well. Okay? All right, do I have any questions? I would love to answer any questions that you have. We are going to move on to the alphabet. We are going to go over these quickly because I would like to honor the 1 hour time slot that we promised. If I'm going too fast, just let me know. And I've received a lot of questions at times about why we don't do the uppercase alphabet as well. Part of that is because we are going to kind of go through this really fast, so we'd be here for a while if we were doing all of it. And also, the uppercase alphabet doesn't quite go through the strokes like the lowercase does, so we want to keep it pretty basic and pretty simple to start. But in the future, if we need to add the uppercase alphabet, you know, maybe that is something that we'll dive into a little bit later. All right, so let's start with our ABCs here, and you'll see my nice little key. You want to start at your blue starting dot. Your first stroke is your pink stroke, and your second stroke or your next stroke is your purple stroke. All right, so we're going to start with our letter A. We start at our 2 o'clock. We go up more thin, and then our thick downstroke to end. Janelle, the uppercase is not included in the worksheets. The worksheets only go through the lowercase alphabet, as well as putting them together with words and all of that. I have not written uppercase worksheets yet, but it might have to be something I'll think about in the future. I just got these ones done. How about that? So I'd have to tackle uppercase, but thank you for asking. All right, so let's go ahead and do another A. And Susan, thanks for joining us. The worksheets are available at craftycroc.com. I believe there's a link a little bit higher in the comments. And for the remainder of the class, if you use the promotional code POSITIVE, you'll get $10 off of those. So the worksheets are only $5, which is amazing. So you might want to snag those up if you would like. All right, let's do one more A. And there we have it. Okay, so moving on to the letter B, we've got 2 strokes here, which is our ascending loop. And then we've got this overturn. And we have this tail, which is how we're going to connect our letters. Notice we have 2 different strokes. So I have my ascending loop. I've lifted my pen off the paper. And then I come in with my it's an overturn and oval combination. Okay. There's the letter B. Now with C, some great news. It's not all that different than how we write it in cursive. So we're going to come in, starting where we start with our oval. We're thin to thick to thin. Okay, let's try that again. Thin, thick, thin. One more time. Thin, thick, and thin. All right, the letter D is a fun one. We get to use our 2 different strokes here. We're going to start with our oval. So we start here at 2 o'clock. And then what we're going to do is come in with our ascending loop. And there you have the D. Let's try it another time. Here's our oval. And then our ascending loop. Now, can you hear that? Can you hear how hard the pen is against the paper? That is how we're really able to get the differentiation in the thin to the thick. It's just really that pressure. Remember, if you learn nothing else today, you learn that hand lettering basics are all about the pressure. You really want the thick and the thin. And because we talked about paper at the beginning of the live here, you'll see that the pen slides really nicely on this paper. If you're using some more of your like computer paper, copy paper, it won't glide quite as easily. Okay? All right, so the letter E is very much like the E we will write in cursive. We're gonna start with a thin upstroke, a thick downstroke, and then we finish it off. Thin to thick to thin, thin, thick, thin, and one more time, thin, thick, thin. All right. If you have any questions on A through E, please feel free to ask any questions in the comments. I'll do my best to answer those the best that I can. We're going to go ahead and move on to the letter F through J. Now F, we've got two different strokes here. F, in my opinion, is one of the trickier letters. I don't know if you'll end up having letters that you like to write and letters that you don't love to write. F is one that I don't love to write. I'm getting better at it though. So we're going to start here with our ascending loop to our descending loop. We come up, I'm going to lift my pen and come in with my tail. Okay, let's try it again. I think the reason I didn't love the letter F is because I was writing the word coffee so frequently, and I was never good at judging my spacing. So I'd make one really big loop up here, and then I'd run out of room for my other one, and then my word just looked horrible. So I think that's part of the reason I didn't love the letter F. Because so often it's used in doubles, like the word coffee. All right, now we're going to move on to G. And in G, we've got an oval and a descending loop. So we start here with our oval. And you'll see, as I mentioned, my ovals are very narrow. Yours may not end up that narrow, but you definitely see in my sheets here how narrow they are. Then we come down with a thick downstroke and a thin upstroke to make our G with that descending loop. Okay. There you go. H. Now, H is one of my favorite letters to write. I may be biased. Both of my kids' names start with H, so I think I just got a lot of practice in like writing it. But it's also one that's fun that you can play with a lot too. So we have our ascending loop to start. You'll notice here in our diagram that we've got two different color arrows. So that means we have two strokes. So you definitely want to lift your pen at the bottom, and then we have our overturn. Okay, let's try that again. Our ascending loop, we lift our pen, start at the bottom, and there we go. Let's try it one more time. I've lifted my pen, and I come in with my overturn. All right, now we get two easy letters to finish out this page. We've got I, which is very similar to just the downstrokes that we practiced, as well as just an I you would write in regular cursive. So we just start here at the top of our stroke. We're thick to go down, thin to start, and we dot our I. Excuse me, thin to finish, and then we dot our I. So thick, a thin tail, and we dot our I. All right, so now moving on to the letter J. We've already done this in our descending loop. Now we're just gonna add our dot. So we're thick, thin, and then our dot. Thick, thin, and our dot. Let's try it again. All right, and there's the letter J. All right, are there any questions between F and J? If there are, just shoot them in the comments. I'd love to help answer any questions you have. We're going to move on through K to O. And K is one that we've got actually 3 different strokes here. I hope that that is clear in the instructions. So in order to show you that, I'm actually going to use 2 different pens. So we're going to do a ascending loop. Okay, I'm going to come in here with my Crafty Croc pen to do my loop there, and then I'm going to come back in, and I guess that is almost exactly the same color. So that didn't really help you. Let me grab a different color here that will make it very obvious. So we have our ascending loop. I'm coming in with like an orange now. There we go. Okay. And then our last. So there you've got the 3 different strokes. I hope that that helps. Ascending. We start at the bottom of our stroke here, and then we kick out with our tail. All right. Now moving on to the letter L. We got 1 fluid stroke, which is basically just that ascending loop. And we're going to add a little bit of a tail at the end. Okay, nice and easy. There we go. All right, the letter M. We are getting into a lot of the overturn strokes that we worked on at the beginning, and a lot of letters that are just really fun to write. So we're going to start here with our blue teal, or excuse me, our teal dot. We're going to do 1 thick downstroke. We're going to come in here with a purple, or excuse me, purple, with our purple line, which is our overturn. I lifted my pen, and I'm going to come in here and do it again. And just to show you, again, I will use a different color. So we have our thick downstroke. I'm going to come in with my second stroke and then come back in. So you'll see it's 3 different strokes. 1, I lift. 2, and then 3. And there's your letter M. All right, so moving on to N, we're just going to do the exact same thing. 1 thick downstroke, and then we go up with our overturn and kick it out with the tail. Thick, overturn, tail. 1 and 2. There you go. All right, now O is a little different than our oval here. So where we started at 2 o'clock, we're going to do the exact same thing, only this is one of the only times we're going to go back over that in order to get that flourish there. So instead of stopping, we're going to come around with that flourish. It is one stroke. So we start at 2 o'clock, we go thin to thick to thin, and then we come around with the tail. Okay, if this is not your style, if you don't particularly want to do that, you could come in here and just come across. All right, if you find that to be easier. But for the worksheet, I have done an O for you with this flourish. All right. Again, if you have questions on K through O, let me know. We are going through them really quickly because I do want to make sure to get through the entire worksheets for you tonight. All right, the letter P. We have got 2 strokes here as evidenced in our key. We have our thick downstroke, and then we come up with our overturn and our tail. our thick downstroke, overturn, and a tail. And another option, if you wanted, you could do a descending loop and then do the exact same thing, just to make it a little bit more fancy. You could definitely do that. Okay. All right, moving on to the letter Q. We've got 2 strokes here, which is our oval. So we start 2 o'clock. We go thick and thin. Then we hit it with a thick descending loop. And then come up with that tail. All right. There we go again. Oval. And our thick descending loop. All right. Now we're going to move on to the letter R. And R is one that you can actually do in 2 different ways, depending on what's more comfortable for you. As you can see here, we have, I labeled it as 1 stroke, and you can definitely do it in 1 stroke. So we're going to do that thin upstroke we talked about. And then as we start to come down, we're going to start to get thicker. And then we finish thin. So that is all in 1 stroke right there. If you would like, and I will break it up for you again, you can come in thin. We start to get thicker. And you could actually stop here if you wanted, and then come in with your 2nd stroke, if that is more comfortable for you. This is a little tricky here because it is a very thin line to start with. R is a little bit more of the tricky ones to write, depending on how you're choosing to write your R. So you could do 1 stroke like this one, or you could do 2, depending on what is more comfortable for you. But you want to make sure to get that differentiation between your thick and your thin. All right, the letter S, we're going to come in here. We've got 2 strokes with our thin upstroke. And then we've got a thick S curve, downstroke, and our tail. So thin, thick, thin. Thin, thick, thin, and thin, thick, and thin. Okay, there you are with the letter S. And we're going to finish off this sheet with the letter T. And T is also one that can be a lot of fun. So you come in with your thick downstroke. And I should come over here, my thick downstroke. Okay. And then this is where you get to come in with your crossbar. It's the first time we've really gotten to do this, and you can have a lot of fun with it here. Whether you want to give it a curve like that, you can also come in with just a straight T. Basically, whatever piece you're working on, what you want it to look like, you can play with it. You can come in this way. Basically, you play around with it and see what you like to do, what looks good with whatever word you're writing. But T at the end of a word is a lot of fun to play with. All right, so now we're going to move on to U, U through Y. And the U is that underturn that we basically have already done. So we've got our thick, thin, thick. Now, I actually do have it as 2 strokes here, and I would suggest you do it that way. I didn't do that on that one, and I just caught myself. Thin to thick, pick up your pen, and then thin, or excuse me, thick. Let's try again. Thick to thin, pick up your pen, and then thick again. Thick, thin, and thick. And there's your letter U. All right, moving on to V. V is where we probably get our most harsh angle. We don't have a lot of that here. And so we're gonna come down in one big stroke and then over with our tail. So thick, thin, thick. Excuse me, thick to thin. Thick to thin, thick to thin. Okay. Now with W, we're gonna do pretty much the same thing. We have a thick to thin. We're gonna lift our pen. Thick to thin and a tail. Thick to thin. Thick to thin and a tail. And there's the W. Moving on to X, we're gonna start over here with our thin, thick, and thin. And our X is gonna be a lot different than how at least I'm used to writing it in cursive. My maiden name actually ended with an X, so I was very used to kind of coming in with that strong down stroke. But because this is a thin line here, we know that it's an upstroke. So you may just have to train your brain a little different on that one. But we're gonna go thin, thick, thin, and then up. So we're thin. One more time. And up so we're thin. Okay? All right, the letter Y is just a combination of two of our strokes for us, which is our underturn and then our descending loop. Underturn, descending loop. Underturn and descending loop. Okay? And again, you lift your pen and come in. So you can really see how it is about taking the 7 different strokes that we learned, putting them together to form letters. All right, we're not looking necessarily at the letters as a whole, yet we're looking at them as sort of the sum of their parts, or the parts, I guess, which come together to make the letter. And then we'll finish strong with our Z here, and then we get to put it all together. So if you don't mind hanging tight with me for just a few more minutes, we got 2 more pages to go through because I really want to get you guys through some of these words here. All right, you got to see how it all comes together. All right, so now we're going to finish with the letter Z. We have our overturn, and then another with our thin tail, an overturn, and then another with our thin tail. And I don't know if any of you are paying like really close attention out there. I noticed that as I wrote that Z, I actually changed the way I held my hand halfway through the letter. And so I wonder, as you're learning, if you won't pick up some of those subconscious things as well. That you notice you might hold your pen one way for one letter and hold it another way for another letter. But I did notice as I wrote that, I changed my hand midway through the letter. Okay, so there we go. We have finished the alphabet. That is the lowercase alphabet, which has put us right to where we get to put it all together. Okay, so now let me show you how we take the letters that we've now drawn and use them to form words. Okay, so we have our letter A here, which is comprised of our 2 strokes. You see the pink and the purple. So we've got our oval and our downstroke. Okay, there we go. We got the letter A. Well, now we're going to come in with our N. So we completely forget our A, which we've already done, and write our N just as we practiced it. So we come in with our thick downstroke and our overturn. And you will see what we did is we merged that tail with our downstroke. And I've highlighted that there for you. So that is how we've connected. We've connected by kind of merging. So now we're going to come down here. We've got our A and our N. And we're going to write our D exactly how we practiced. Don't think about the A, don't think about the N. Come in. We're going to merge it with that tail. And we have our letter here, okay? So we've got our A, our N, and our D. And there you have it, the word and. Okay, I know I've gone through that very quickly, but please, if you have questions, let me know. One thing I would want to caution you against, the reason why I want you to just not even look at those is because let's take the N and the D, okay? So we've got our N, and then we've got our D. If we tried to start our D here at our tail, we would end up running out of room and writing right over our word. We don't want to do that. So what we're going to do is come in with our tail. We don't really want to pay attention to N because all we need is that tail. Do it exactly as we practiced. And there you have it. See the difference here? All right, I hope that helps. Now we get to write some words here. And I've color-coded them for you, which hopefully makes it nice and easy. So I call it bulldozing. I'm not sure what other people call it. But for me, I connect my letters to create words by bulldozing. All right, and I will show you how. So first we're going to start with our letter T. We come in and we write our T exactly how we practiced. Now, we come in with our H. We start here with our ascending loop. We bulldoze right over that tail. Can't see it, it's gone. Nobody knows that we, lifted our pen. Now we come in with our next stroke, which is our overturn. We make our tail. And then the same rule applies. We're going to start our E exactly as we practiced earlier. And we take out that tail by bulldozing it with our thick downstroke, okay? And then we come here at the end with our crossbar. Now, I'll show you the same principle with the word I showed you before. If we did this and then tried to start our E here, we could very well run out of room. The spacing isn't as great. We don't want to do that, okay? So we're definitely going to keep doing letter by letter to then form the word. So we'll move on to the word to. We've got our thick downstroke. Come in right at 2 o'clock with our O. And then we've got our fun crossbar here with the letter T. And again, you can do that just like so if you want to. You don't have to do any fancy crossbar if you don't want to. All right, now a lot of letterers have words that they like to write in order to warm up. For whatever reason, I love to write the word love. I just love the combination of the letters and I find it really fun. So this is my warming up word right here. So we're going to start with our L. Come in with that tail. Start at 2 o'clock for our O. We connect by bulldozing. V, we're going to connect by bulldozing once again. And then E, connect by bulldozing. Okay? I hope that makes sense. And again, we could run into trouble with that V and E if we didn't do it like that, because you might be tempted to start your E up here and then you've got letters that are all wonky. And you don't want that. You want to keep it all nice like that. So that's why we take each stroke to form each letter, to form each word. Okay? All right, so there's two other things I'd like to point out very quickly. And here we have a double letter, and we have the word happy. So let's go ahead. I'm going to write right over top of this since I didn't give myself a lot of room. And I'm going to go with my up ascending loop and my overturn. I've got my tail here. You'll see I've circled where your tails are. And then we come in with our oval and our downstroke for the P, and then here we go with another P again. And then we come in here and finish strong with our Y. And there is a double letter for you, okay? And then lastly, we've got one of your more difficult connections, which is where you have a thin to thin connection. So where, we've come in here and we have bulldozed our letters. Now we don't quite have that same opportunity because we're taking a thin tail straight into a thin stroke, okay? So we're gonna start our O just like we would. We're coming up, and then we're gonna keep going and go thick. And again, you can do it in 1 or 2 strokes, whatever feels better for you. But you'll see right there, you've got that thin to thin connection. And my best advice is just practice and practice and practice some more. And then what you'll find is subconsciously, I think, you'll start to realize when those letters are coming, when those connections are coming. And if you have practiced enough, then your muscle memory will adjust for that. And there you have it. There are some of the common words, some of the common things you'll run into, like double letters and thin to thin. If you did go ahead and purchase the lettering worksheets, number one, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. There are 10 sheets, I believe, that look like this that you can practice. Whether it's your alphabet or just different words that you like, they are all right here for you. And I believe the worksheets also include a little about me at the very end as well. Thank you so much for choosing to spend an hour with me and Crafty Croc on a Saturday night. I hope you are all staying well and staying safe. Thank you for being creative with me and allowing me to share lettering with you. There will be more classes coming up, so if you do not follow Crafty Croc, I would suggest that you do. I'd encourage you to do so. We've got some really talented artists in Catherine and Kiki, and they will also be teaching classes, so you can get all the information straight to your inbox or your social media if you follow Crafty Croc. They're on Instagram as well as Facebook, and their website as well. They've got some great deals, including their watercolor brush pens, which you can see right here. And hopefully they'll be having some more of these free sessions as well. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Laura. I really enjoyed having you. Thank you, Brad. I didn't even see you pop in. Janelle, thanks so much, all of you. I hope you have a really great evening. Oh, and Susan, I love to hear that it was fun and also calming. I find lettering to be super calming. So like cuddle up with a blanket and your worksheets and just pop in like your favorite music, and that's a great Saturday night, at least for me. And so anyhow, thank you, all of you. Have a great night. And I look forward to teaching you again sometime. Bye.